Ukraine's Air Force says it shot down Russian drones and missiles overnight. Ukraine's air defenses shot down a barrage of weapons launched by Russia overnight, including missiles and 20 Iran-made drones, the Ukrainian Air Force said Thursday. In a statement on Telegram, the Air Force said attack drones fired by Russian forces were destroyed mostly in the Kyiv region. Russia also fired 2 cruise missiles from the Black Sea and 1 ballistic missile from Crimea, it said. Earlier Thursday, Ukrainian officials said 1 person died and 2 others were injured in Kyiv after air defenses intercepted Russian drones, marking the 3rd successive night of airstrikes on the capital. Russian Navy ship docks in Cuba as tough times bring the old friends together. As a series of welcoming cannon blasts rang out from a nearby colonial fort, the Russian Navy's training-class ship Perekop sailed into Havana on Tuesday. While in Cuba for a 4-day visit, the Perekop's sailors will carry out a wide range of activities, according to Cuba's state-run Prensa Latina news service, and members of the Cuban public will be given the opportunity to tour the ship. It is the first official visit by a Russian naval vessel to Cuba in years, and another sign of the reforging of the relationship between the 2 Cold War-era allies after the collapse of the Soviet Union nearly brought down the Cuban economy with it. While Russia's invasion of Ukraine has led to its widespread ostracization, the Cuban government increasingly has defended Moscow. He also blasted U.S. economic sanctions on Russia, while heralding Russian projects of cooperation and collaboration under development in Cuba. Biden to discuss security cooperation with Nordic leaders in Finland. President Joe Biden is in Helsinki, Finland, for a summit with Nordic leaders Thursday, offering an opportunity for the countries to bolster security cooperation amid threats from Russia and China. Biden will meet with the leaders of Finland, Sweden, Norway, Iceland and Denmark, marking the 3rd such summit and the first of the Biden administration. It comes on the heels of a major win for Biden in Vilnius, Lithuania, after Turkey dropped its objections to Sweden's accession to NATO earlier this week, but also provides the leaders a forum to discuss a range of other pressing issues. The leaders come into the Thursday meeting with momentum after Finland joined NATO and Sweden is set to join the alliance, providing a boost and strong display of unity amid Russia's war in Ukraine. The historic announcement represented a stunning about-face from Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who stood in the path of Sweden joining NATO for more than a year over a multitude of concerns. The Biden administration led a full-court press in the days leading up to the Vilnius summit, capping months of behind-the-scenes diplomacy to get Turkey to move ahead with Sweden's accession. Among the other issues up for discussion, Arctic security. There is a presence from both China and Russia in the Arctic, an area that's becoming more accessible due to climate change. Amid more than 500 days of war in Ukraine, Russia has continued to expand its military bases in the Arctic region. Satellite images obtained by CNN months ago showing continued progress fortifying and expanding radar bases and runways in the area. A Russian general says he was fired after accusing the defense minister of treachery. Here's the latest. A high-profile Russian general in command of forces in occupied southern Ukraine said he was dismissed from his post after accusing the defense minister of betraying Russian soldiers by not providing sufficient support. General Ivan Popov was the commander of the 58th Combined Arms Army, which has been involved in heavy fighting in the Zaporizhia region. He is one of the most senior officers involved in the Russian campaign in Ukraine. The dismissal of such a senior officer amid an open dispute over the conduct of the Russian campaign is unprecedented, according to analysts. Here are other headlines you should know. Kyiv attacks. 1 person was killed and 2 others were injured in the Ukrainian capital early Thursday after air defenses intercepted unmanned aerial vehicles, local officials said. It marks the 3rd successive night of Russian airstrikes on the Kyiv region. On the ground, Ukrainian forces are making further advances in the Bakhmut area and rebuffed Russian assaults elsewhere in the Donetsk region, according to officials. Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar said Ukraine's forces successfully held back the Russian offensive in the Kupiansk, Lyman, Avdiivka and Marinka directions, all areas of the front lines where the Russians have made repeated attempts to break through Ukrainian defenses. General killed. A popular Russian state television program appeared to confirm the death of a Russian general in Ukraine. Ukrainian officials had claimed that Oleg Sokov, the deputy commander of the Southern Military District, was among a number of Russians killed in a Ukrainian missile strike Tuesday. The attack was targeted on a Russian headquarters in the occupied city of Berdyansk, Ukrainian officials said. Independent analysts and CNN's own tally indicate that Russia has lost about 10 generals in combat since the invasion began. NATO summit takeaways. U.S. President Joe Biden and G7 leaders unveiled a substantial show of support for Ukraine at the NATO summit in Vilnius, Lithuania, offering a joint declaration of support for Kyiv aimed at bolstering the war-torn country's military capability. However, there was still no invitation for Ukraine to join the alliance. In his nightly address after the summit, President Volodymyr Zelensky expressed optimism about Ukraine's path to becoming a member of NATO. Moscow's take. The Russian Foreign Ministry, for its part, said the NATO summit demonstrated that the alliance has finally returned to the Cold War schemes. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said Turkey would be glad to act as a mediator between Russia and Ukraine if the two countries agreed to such a proposition. Military assistance. Estonia's Prime Minister defended her support for the U.S. decision to provide Ukraine with controversial cluster bombs. And UK Defence Secretary Ben Wallace said Kyiv's allies want to see gratitude from Ukraine for their support, while recalling how he told Ukrainian officials during a visit to Kyiv in June 2022 that the UK was not Amazon when he was given a list of weapons demands. Meanwhile, former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson urged the US not to grow weary of Ukraine's grinding battle against Russia. One person dead and 2 injured as Ukraine intercepts Russian UAVs over Kyiv region, local officials say. One person was killed in Kyiv after Ukrainian air defenses intercepted unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, over the region early Thursday morning, Mayor Vitaly Klitschko said. According to Klitschko, the body of a man was found while responders were extinguishing an apartment building fire in Kyiv's Podil district. Air defense systems intercepted Russian airstrikes launched early on Thursday morning, the Kyiv Regional Military Administration said on Telegram. Air defense is operating in the region, on the outskirts of Kyiv city. Stay in shelters until the air raid is over, said Serhiy Popko, the head of the Kyiv City Military Administration. Klitschko reported damage in several parts of the capital and said 2 injured people in the Darnitsia district have been hospitalized. It marks the 3rd successive night of Russian airstrikes on the Kyiv region. We have removed any doubts that Ukraine will join NATO, Zelensky says. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is expressing optimism about Ukraine's path to becoming a member of NATO. At the summit, U.S. President Joe Biden and G7 leaders unveiled a joint declaration of support for Ukraine aimed at bolstering the war-torn country's military capability.